I think you actually might be my first repeat guest. How fun is that?
Am I really? Oh my
I think
gosh,
you
I feel
might
so
be.
honored.
So, if you don't know that voice already, it is my dear friend, Dr. Morgan Francis. I always feel so formal when I address you by your full doctor name.
I know, and it's so funny because Elliot will be like, "Hi, Dr. Morgan." Like I don't think he's ever called me Morgan. Like
I
he
know.
always says, "Hi, Dr. Morgan." I'm like, "Hi, Elliot."
I love it so much. Well, I do have my dear, dear friend with me today, soul sister, and just such an important part of my support network. And it's interesting because, as I've shared with you guys before, we record podcasts a few weeks in advance. So we're recording this right now on March 18th. So we're really like 3 days in to what I am referring to as like my self-imposed quarantine. There's a lot of uncertainty going on in the world. And I believe that by the time you're hearing this, which is about a month later, we're going to need to keep this conversation going about just how we support ourselves as women, as entrepreneurs, as moms, daughters, sisters, friends. How do we support ourselves in a time of increased uncertainty? Because I don't think that part is going to go away as soon as we maybe would like it to. So I think you're the perfect person to really have this conversation with me, just with the intention of equipping our audience, our community, our women in order to really thrive. I believe we can all thrive during this time.
I love what you're saying, and I appreciate so much the energy and optimism you have about that we are going to get through this and with each other. As you've always said, we can't do it alone. And so I am glad that we're able to open up a conversation about uncertainty and how it affects us emotionally and mentally and psychologically, because there's so many layers to this word as it's just being pulled in, from the universe to us.
Mhm. I found it so synchronistic that yesterday I actually had done a live talking on this topic of uncertainty, and then I didn't get a chance to watch yours yet, but I saw that you had done a video on the topic as well. So I would actually just love to know, we're like in it right now. We're in, I think, the peak of this uncertainty. Although I do believe it will continue. What are you seeing from a mental health professional standpoint? People are really wrestling with right now in this time of increased uncertainty? Like, what are some of the themes that you're really seeing in your office, in your friends, in the people around you?
Yeah, so there's a wide spectrum, but overall, I think each and every one of us is dealing with what's going to happen. What does this mean for me? How is this going to affect me? How is this going to affect my family? How is this going to affect my ability to pay my bills? How am I going to keep my house? How am I able to go back to school? There's so many questions that we don't have the answers to. And so it's a very natural, humanistic um, thing for us to do, to think about and get stuck in and wrapped in all the unknowns. And so whenever I see someone going down that rabbit hole, I slowly try to redirect them and say, okay, give me a pause, take a deep breath, because when we breathe, we allow ourselves to get back grounded into the present moment. And I want you to use some awareness and mindfulness to think about what you do know. Because when we go back to what we do know, well, I do know that I have my health. I do know that I have relationships. I do know that I still have my education. I do know that I have this amount saved. I do know that I have my, partner, or I do know that I have my faith. These are things that we know about ourselves that we have to come back to, that can really be a way to start redirecting and moving away from the anxiety of the uncertainty.
Ooh, that's so good. And I think you really nailed it when you brought up this word anxiety, which obviously anxiety has a lot of different layers to it as well. But I find myself when I'm noticing feelings of anxiety, either in myself or in people around me, it's based in this conversation about imagining something in the future that hasn't happened, right?
Yes.
What if this person loses their job? What if my business is forced to close? What if? Can you just speak a little bit to that mindset around, or even maybe some tools, if we find ourselves feeling those feelings of anxiety in this season, if we find ourselves really projecting into the future things that haven't happened, what are some of the tools that can ground us back into the present, even beyond what you shared already is so brilliant?
Yeah, so I love how you defined anxiety, and it's similar to what I say to my patients. So anxiety is time traveling to the future. So what if this happens? And then depression is time traveling to the past. I should have, I would have, I could have. So
Ooh.
we know from research that the most, helpful way for us to stay grounded is in our mindfulness and awareness. So, mindfulness being in the present moment with unconditional positive regard. Now, let's look a little bit deeper into anxiety and why we time travel to the future. So, when we are feeling anxious, it is a symptom of a bigger issue, and that's our trauma, right? So, trauma, we tend to go into three different responses: fight, flight, or freeze. So, when we perceive a threat or there is a real threat, and this is the key thing to remember, the body responds the exact same way. So, I could be driving down the road and there could be a car coming into my lane, which is really happening. There's a threat to my safety. So I honk the horn and I'm like, "Ooh, wow." And I maybe try to move my car around this person coming into my lane. But it also could be perceived threat, meaning I'm driving down the highway and I'm perceiving the car coming closer to my side of the road, but maybe he or she doesn't. It doesn't matter. I'm still going to honk the horn and I'm still going to try to move around this person because it's still a threat to my safety. When we feel that there's a threat to our safety, we go into self protective mode. So, self protective mode is our natural reflex to trauma. So, self protective mode could look like avoidance. I'm not going to think about it. I don't want to think about it, and I don't do anything about it. So you see people who will not take action, who will continue to go down this deep rabbit hole and will really struggle to know what to do and how to pull themselves out, because that's a natural response to anxiety is avoidance.
Mm.
A much more common way of looking at this is, if I'm afraid to fly, I don't get on airplanes. I'll drive, right? If I am a fear of getting in the elevator, what do? I take the stairs. So those are classic things of avoidance. So self-protective mode also can lead to fighting back, where we get angry, we get rebellious, we get mad at the government, we get mad at what's happening to us, and that can also perpetuate our victim stance, meaning, why is this happening to me? This isn't fair, and we really get into that victim posture where we feel very helpless. And then there's the times where we can just flee, right? So we just want to get away, and maybe we just completely escape into numbing out, such as like Netflix or emotional eating, or just doing things that are really unproductive for ourselves. So when we go into our trauma, what's really going to be important is for us to develop what's called self-compassion, because
Mm.
we're all struggling and we're all going to be uncertain together, and none of us are going to have the answers. And I was talking to a small business friend of mine yesterday, and she felt this pressure. She felt this pressure to have the answer to help other like minded business people. She's like, they're looking to me to have the answer, to tell them what to do, to help them keep them afloat. And I graciously and compassionately responded to her, you don't need to have the answers, because the answers already lie within ourselves. And what
Mm.
I mean by that is, when we have been faced, such as we are right now with what's going on in the world, when we have been faced with uncertainty, I want you to go back in time, and I want you to think of a time in your life when you have overcome something that you didn't know the outcome of.
Yeah. I love
Yeah.
that.
Because think about it for you, Lynn. It's like, you didn't know the outcome of your first Powerhouse event. You didn't
Mm.
know if it was going to be successful. You didn't know if women were really going to thrive and respond to this. You didn't know if you would even do it again, right? You didn't know. You just went out there and you did it, and you didn't know the outcome, and you did it anyways. And even the second one, you didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know what was going to happen. I mean, when I stood
Yeah.
on stage in 2017, I didn't know what was going to happen, but I did it, and you did it, and then we were able to walk through that. So there's been so many times in our lives that we have ventured into something where we did not know the outcome. We had uncertainty and we were still able to thrive.
Ooh, okay. I love this so much because in a lot of personal development that I've done, we've talked about, how our minds, our brains are always going to be looking for that certainty. And in a space where there's not certainty presented right in front of us, it's going to look to past memories and look for evidence, any evidence whatsoever. So if we can recall and we can even, I mean, how powerful would it be to even write those out and keep them handy, either like a list in our phones or like something to go back to when and if we find ourselves, because it's likely to show up when we're least expecting it. Just those feelings of, I don't have control right now. I don't know the outcome. I don't have control. And to remind ourselves how we've thrived in past situations like that. I love that so much.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And you're right. We don't have control, but what we do have control of is our reaction to things we can't control. And
Yeah.
through research, that's how we know that's really like the bottom line of resiliency, right? So you can have somebody in the room that's got 20 things on their plate that are coming up for them. And you can have another person in the room who's got maybe one big thing. And the person who's got one thing that's going on for them is doing much worse psychologically and mentally than the person who's got 20 things. Why? Due to the way that we respond to things out of our control. So when we are faced with uncertainty, that's where self protection really has to come into the forefront, because we really need to have something that can be certain. And we can be certain going back to past events in our life that show us, like you said, evidence to remind us, hey, we're capable. We are capable of being able to handle things we don't know the outcome of. I think about my marriage. I mean, I didn't know the outcome of my marriage, but I go in every day with my partner hoping that we are going to show up for one another and we're going to support one another and we're going to make this marriage work. Now, not everybody has that. Some people go through heartbreak and or divorce, but guess what? You're able to get through the heartbreak because you ask yourself, how am I ever going to get through this? And yet you do. You do. Every day you work on your healing. Every day you work on loving yourself a little bit more. When you don't know what to do, you go back to the compassion. So it's really, really
Yeah.
important that we call upon those past experiences to provide us reassurance, because that's the certainty. The certainty lies already within us. And that's really what I was trying to share with my friend yesterday. And I know it really helped her. And I really feel like that's what we have to go back to.
I love that. I I'm glad you brought up the conversation you had with your friend. It actually mirrors conversations that I've been having with women in our community these past few days about feeling this overwhelming desire to help, but
Mm.
also knowing that none of us do have the answers. We don't know exactly what this is going to look like. And a conversation I've found myself in that I'd love your feedback on too is to, each of us have skills. Each of us have, especially the people listening to this podcast, we have influence over people around us. And there is a small way, I bet, if we looked, that we can help to minimize uncertainty for the people around us. Now, here's what I mean by that. So, I was talking with my mastermind participants, and each of them have like this amazing array of skills. One of them is a lawyer, right? So, she can help business owners minimize uncertainty around just some legal implications. So, in a small, tiny way, helping people around using the skill that you have, minimize one teeny tiny feeling of uncertainty that they may have. You're a perfect example, right? A mental health professional. So, helping with the coping skills and the tools that you have, helping people to minimize uncertainty around how they're feeling right now. Health professionals, like talking about immunity. So, I think in this time, we've all really come together and everyone is just this consensus of, I want to help. I want to help. And I think, I don't know about anyone else, but I feel like this overwhelming, sometimes responsibility, which then that can lead to, other unproductive feelings. But understanding that, what if I just focused on what am I uniquely gifted at and how can that help minimize a tiny bit of uncertainty for people around me? Maybe that's the impact that I'm meant to make right now in this season.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's so important because, we look at altruism, which is really, helping others. research shows that when we tap into our altruism, like from a social psychology perspective, it really helps manage our emotions, meaning it decreases our depression, it decreases our anxiety, and helps us to feel connected. And I think also with social distancing, since we're not coming in contact with people, and how I've been able to interpret this from a psychological standpoint is all the things that we enjoyed doing, like getting together with our friends. We were just talking about that a moment ago, or traveling, or going on vacations, or concerts, or sporting events. These are things that increase our dopamine. So our dopamine is a neurotransmitter for pleasure, for feeling good, and for feeling connected, right? So that those things have gone away because of what's going on with COVID and the virus, and our social distancing that has to happen, and for many states, actual quarantine. And when that happens, our dopamine gets depleted. So a way for us to actually increase our dopamine is to reach out, is to help out, is to feel like we have a duty to act out, to duty to serve others, so that we can help increase naturally our dopamine once again. So I really actually think it's a very healthy way of us to cope through our anxiety and or depression during this time.
Oh, that's such a good perspective. And it's interesting, having this conversation about uncertainty. We're recording this right now, a few weeks before people will hear it, not knowing. We have no idea what the state of the world around us is going to look like. And we're doing what we can see right now to do. And even just
Exactly.
in doing that, feels like, okay, we're getting through this together. So I actually want to talk about that because you so eloquently said, this community is really built on this premise that we're not meant to do this alone. So, what are some of the ways that we can be supporting ourselves socially while, and again, not knowing what this is going to look like in a few weeks, but right now we're spending less and less time with physical, in person human connection? So, what are some of the things we can be doing to support ourselves right now?
That's a great question. And I actually was thinking about this today. So I've thought about 5 things, even for my own personal journey, that have helped me, I don't know, the last week or so with everything going on. So I think the first and foremost, what's helped me is to have a routine. I thrive in structure, I thrive in boundaries, I thrive in consistency. So I need a routine. And because I'm a mom of 3 children, I've actually noticed how important it is for them to have a routine as well. So I print it out. Like every hour, there is something going on that's a routine that's up on the refrigerator that we are all, abiding to. I mean, I'm sure there's a little bit of flexibility in it. But that is something, for most people, we are creatures of habit, and we really need to have that routine in order to feel safe.
Yeah.
The second thing we can do is to have some kind of tactile sensation. Now, I'm a pet owner. I know you are a pet owner as well. So I have been giving extra love to my puppy, and just cuddling with him, feeling him, walking him, spending time with him. If you have a cat, if you have anything, if let's say you're not a pet owner, let's say you have allergies, what I would do is get something really soft, something that's really comforting to you from a tactile sensation perspective, and wrap it around you. So like a heavy blanket, a rabbit's foot, whatever you got, something that feels nice and soft and comforting. I actually was really upset emotionally a couple of days ago because my daughter does horseback riding, and one of the things that really helped my mental health was to go to the barn to see all the horses. And because of the virus, they had to close down the barn, so only personnel are allowed around the horses. And I noticed I got so sad because I was like, oh my gosh, they're a part of my mental health because I love going to animals. So I'm so grateful that I have a puppy that I can, give extra love to, and I've been really spending more time with him. The third thing is to have something to move your body. I think movement is so important right now, to move our bodies. And what I would highly recommend is doing 30 minutes a day. Now, those 30 minutes can be 10-minute increments. It can be 30 minutes maybe in the morning, 30 minutes in the afternoon, whenever you can find the time, but move your body. This morning, again, it's in our schedule with my children, we do an hour of movement. And so we took a hike yesterday. We went for a walk in our neighborhood another day. We did yoga because it was raining. Now, it was not pretty. Yoga was a mess, but it was fun and we were all laughing at one another. And so being able to move our bodies is so, so important. The fourth thing is connection. And although we're not able to physically connect with our loved ones, I have made an intentional promise to myself that I would call or connect with at least 3 people a day. So whether that's my grandma, whether that's my cousin I haven't talked to in years, whether that's my friend that I'm looking at right now, it's connecting with 3 people a day. And then I would say, the fifth thing would be, kind of like it's your miscellaneous, it's your choice. So for me, I have a song that it always just lifts my spirits up. And it's a weird song because the lyrics are not very uplifting. It's called Staggerly. It's a very, very old song. But it's really like the lyrics are not uplifting at all. But the beat is great, and it makes me laugh, and it makes me dance, and it makes me twirl around in my kitchen. And so that's my miscellaneous. So maybe your miscellaneous is going outside. Maybe your miscellaneous is, watching a Netflix show. Maybe your miscellaneous is reading a book. Maybe your miscellaneous is allowing yourself to cry. And I think that is something that I've, honored as well, is just whatever I'm feeling, I'm going to allow myself to feel. If I feel scared, I'm going to be scared. If I feel worried, I'm going to be worried. If I need to cry, I'm going to cry, and giving myself permission to feel all the feelings, but then also having a boundary around it. Just like I would have a boundary around how much time I spend moving my body, like 30 minutes, I'm going to put a boundary around how much of my emotions I go into, because that helps me regulate myself. If I'm going, 0 to 100, that's not going to be effective. That's not effective for anybody.
Yeah.
But if I go from 0 to 80, back down to 40, maybe a little to 60, then back down to 20, I'm working that emotional fluidity, and I'm allowing myself to just be in that, wave of back and forth and feeling what needs to come up, and then allowing it to disperse. So those would be my 5 tips for helping a person get through this difficult time when we don't, like we've been talking about, when we don't know what the outcome's going to be.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And one of the things I'm seeing, I'm like giggling because we were just talking about we have a group of friends and we were planning to do brunch, which we're not going to be able to do brunch in person. So we thought, well, gosh, why don't we just reimagine that and do it virtually, bring our mimosas, connect on Zoom. So what I'm seeing is a lot of people really turning to technology, and thank God we're in the age that we are where we can be digitally connected. One of the things that I wanted to make sure we mentioned is something you launched recently, which is a text message program I'm going to have you share about. And little did you know, this would really be needed now more than ever. So, will you share just about why you created your mindful messages, how people can connect with those, and what they can expect to get from you in their text inbox?
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I had no idea when I created that this, like you just said, like this was going to be such an important resource. And the feedback that I've been getting about the mindful messages with Dr. Morgan has been astounding. So really what I wanted to do was to create a text messaging service that goes right to your phone. And these are messages around mindfulness, because so often we're in autopilot. We are just trying to get through our day. We're not really consciously aware of what's going on for us emotionally and mentally and spiritually. And so I wanted to bring that awareness back to our phones, because we spend so much time on our phones. And I'm human. I have definitely lost time through social media. And while I love Instagram and Facebook and all the things that we use to connect and get resources, it also can take some time away from us and move us out of our conscious healing. So a
Mhm.
text message that you'll receive, it's a free text messaging service that goes directly to your phone by texting 1-202-759-6205. And I'm sure we'll put it in the show notes as
Yeah,
well.
we will.
For anyone who misses that, because I went kind of through that quickly. But it's messages of empowerment, inspiration, things about relationships, forgiveness, self-love, body image, all the things that we need to hear. And
Yeah.
for me, Linz, I mean, I always go back to that younger part of myself, those years when I was really struggling with my own self-love and insecurity and body image and relationships and all the things that I'm sure so many of us have struggled with, right? And I think about, what did that girl need? And she needed to know she wasn't alone, obviously, a lot of your sentiment. And so that was my other thing, is like, I want people to know that they're not alone, and not everybody can get into therapy. Not everybody can afford to get into therapy. And so this is a free service that I wanted to offer individuals to stay connected. And I recently lost a friend to suicide, a childhood friend of mine. And I can't stop thinking about, not that these mindful messages would have saved his life, but what if it would have bought him some time? And I just go back to that. And I think, there's so many people in this world that are they're lonely. They're so lonely. And this is a way for them to feel like they're not alone from a mental health perspective. And I'm so glad that this is something that's happening and we can come together. And so, yeah, I'm the mindful messages is my gift to everyone else.
Well, first of all, I got chills when you shared that. And I am just so grateful to know you. I'm grateful to have you as part of my girl gang, and really just so honored to be on this journey with you, because your gifts are so needed, especially right now. And I think one of the positive income outcomes I'm seeing already start to happen is people understanding the importance of their mental health and investing in that daily, whether it be through services like your text messaging service, seeing a professional. I think this time of uncertainty is highlighting for all of us that just as we invest in our physical health, our mental health is just as important, if not even more important, because it really runs everything.
Yeah, it really does. And I always say it's the greatest investment that you can make. And it doesn't always mean you have to go to therapy. I want to be open about that. Even though I am a therapist, I understand that not everybody can get on that couch. And so that, your podcast that you offer, Lindsay, the book recommendations that you offer, taking time to allow ourselves to feel, deal, and heal is so important. And so that's where, a free service like the mindful messages is part of you making the investment into your mental health.
Yeah, so, so important. I'm so grateful for you. And, even in light of this season we're in of increased uncertainty, something we've been talking about a lot as a community right now is encouraging women to truly step into their gifts. And I think right now, our gifts and our message, our light is needed even more than ever. So I'm still going to end with this question we've been asking our guests, because I think it's to show that we can even find our strength. We can really anchor into our gifts even during a time of increased uncertainty. So we love to know, what is a moment in the past week or recently where you have just felt like a total powerhouse? It could be something so small that happened, or it could be big, but what is something that you would consider your powerhouse moment?
Oh, I love this question. Honestly, I think for me is showing up as a mom. Showing up as a mom. Oh, I'm gonna cry. Showing up as a mom to help my children have normalcy during this time. And their world is changing too. They're pulled out of their schools. They don't have their friends. They don't have their sports. They don't have those activities that they're used to having. It's my daughter's birthday tomorrow. I had to cancel her birthday party. And I just want to give her normalcy and to know that I will protect them no matter what happens in this world. Mommy and daddy are always here for you, and we will protect them no matter what happens. And so I think that's where I felt really good because no matter what I'm going through or my husband's going through and our own uncertainty, our children will always be our certainty. They will always be the thing that we know we can come back to, and we can give our love, we can give our time, we can give our compassion, we can be there for them. And that's where my certainty is that I'm capable of being there for them during this time, and I will never let that falter. I will never let that waver because they will always have my love. And so
Mm.
that's where I feel like I've shined.
I love you. I love your heart. And
Thank
I
you.
am so grateful for you spending some time with us today. So just thank you for who you are and your light that you're sharing with the world.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate all that you're doing right now and bringing so much awareness to all of us during this time, and still offering so much information when we all look up to you, because you are our light as well in this community, Lynn. So thank you.